Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 6:38 a.m. East Coast time, Sunday, August 17th, and there are 5 NFL games today, only 4 on the main slate, so not going to be covering the showdown slate that has only like a $2,000 to first prize pool compared to the $20,000 to first prize pool for the 4-game night slate. If you're new here, welcome. Tons of new people, and I mean like 100 or so a day, are subscribing to the channel during the NFL content. Thank you all so much if you're new here. Welcome. Hopefully you're getting some value from these videos. Do let me know down below. If you're not yet subscribed and this is your first time seeing me, welcome to the channel. I cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, WNBA, and MLB. There'll be an MLB video up today, as well as this NFL one that you're watching right now. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we get into it. Down below and titled up above, I do have an NFL daily fantasy course. It's linked down below. Right now, I'm doing a $10 off little promotion that will likely end, honestly, probably in a couple of days or so. So you can get that. Check it out down below. There's just a link. It tells you everything that's in it. There's a video of me telling you that. Also down below is Patreon. I do have a Patreon, and I am doing different types of content, exclusive content there. I release my tiers for all the NFL slates right now for the preseason. I have MLB content, WNBA projections there. So yeah, the tiers and the rankings and pretty much my picks and the process of which I'm going with them are down there. People have seemed to like those. And then there's some free guides down below that you can download, a Discord you can hop into. Ask me any questions on Twitter, @SalVetcherDFS. That's all the housekeeping. Check out all the things in the description. That's where everything I just said is located. Hit the subscribe button if you get any value from this video. We're about to smash through 6,200 subscribers. Thank you all so much. We're going to get into this. And just a disclaimer. All these picks are not going to win you $1 million. I did deep research, and I read 2 to 3 to 4 hours a day. And then I put together these different early morning shows, and then in the tiers later today, I filtered through some of my thoughts. So don't be coming back to the channel with the, oh, your picks didn't win me my money. Because I'm tired of even responding to these clowns in the NFL streets. They're just all over the top. These guys have different mindsets, just crazy people. So you're just going to get banned from the channel in terms of commenting if you're just going to be negative. Because I don't need that in my life right now. But yeah, in terms of quarterbacks, look, there's murmurs. I've read 2 reports, and out of like the 10 reports I'm reading from Chiefs camp, 2 of them have said that Andy Reid is going to be playing his starters the whole first half. The other ones failed to mention that. So I've reached out to a couple of beat writers. I will be adding this to the rankings. I will be tweeting this as well, so make sure to follow me there. If indeed Andy Reid is going to play his starters, he played them for a first quarter last week, and that first quarter allowed them to play 1 drive, just the way that the cookie crumbled. The team that they were playing, I forget already, got the ball first. Then the Chiefs got the ball. Then there were some long drives. The Chiefs' first offense did not get back on the field in the first quarter. But if they're playing the whole first half, 3 possessions is the minimum that would you get there, and you get potentially 4 to upside of 5 possessions with Patrick Mahomes. So if they're playing the whole first half, it's pretty obvious to me where you're going with a lot of your lineups at quarterback, at tight end, at wide receiver. Maybe not so much running back. I like some other running back options today, as well as some of the Chiefs guys, but yeah, we have to verify that because this slate turns on its head if the Chiefs are playing the whole first half. You get the best offense in the league, at least last year and probably this year as well, going up against I don't care if it's first and second stringers. They're going to be out there for a whole half compared to what else you're getting from backups that don't have that same type of skill level, don't have that same type of speed on their offense. So just disclaiming this all, if indeed the Chiefs are playing the whole first half, just lock in Patrick Mahomes. He should be 100% owned in that situation, and he will likely not be on a 4-game slate. He'll probably be pushing in the 60s. I will continue to try and find out if that is actually true, but let's just say that it is or it's not, and we're going to exclude that. He's the obvious play if he's playing the whole first half. There's no doubt about it. I'm not even considering anybody else. He's going into all of my lineups. Other guys that I do have interest in, if that is not the case, if he's only playing 1 quarter, I have no interest in him. I'm not going to play a guy who's going to get 1 to 2 possessions, even if he's efficient on those. It's just not the same as playing 2. Right, 2 quarters and doubling those possessions, and really now at that point playing at elite level for a preseason game. Joe Webb has some interest. He's not going to play all 4 quarters. I imagine Deshaun Watson gets some run in this game, maybe 1 to 2 quarters at most, or 1 to 2 drives at most. But still, Joe Webb played all 4 quarters the entire game against the Packers, and he played well when you factor in his rushing yards. He had like 2 picks. He threw for a touchdown, 200 yards, and had like 40-something yards on the ground. So he played well, but he also had 4 quarters to do it. You cut those numbers in half, and he only has 2 quarters to do it, while the guy's got he's got 100 yards, maybe a touchdown, and only 30 or only 20 rushing yards and an interception. So the interception cancels out any of the rushing yards that he just had, and now you're looking at Joe Webb with maybe a touchdown, maybe not, and 100 yards. That's a terrible performance. So I don't have a ton of interest in Joe Webb. Out of these 6 guys or so that I have starred, he's probably the least interesting because they did sign a guy in Tamayo. I don't know who that is, but he's probably going to play the 4th quarter. with A.J. McCarron injured. And if you get a half a quarter to a whole quarter out of Deshaun Watson, you're getting Joe Webb playing about half the time that he did last week. And again, he wasn't great in terms of overall production, but he was just great because he had overall opportunities. I mean, the man threw 40 times and only had 200 yards. That's terrible. We saw Ryan Griffin last week throw 40 times and had 330 yards, which is what you should have playing against second and third stringers the whole game. So Joe Webb, he's just worth a note because he is a guy who should play 2 quarters still today, but no real huge upside there. Ryan Tannehill and Logan Woodside for Tennessee. I like both of them today. Again, this is disclaiming that Patrick Mahomes, if he's playing the first half, I don't care about any of these other names on here, but just to go through, I like Woodside a little bit more. He'll be coming in. Look, you're going to get Mariota playing a quarter here. They said that, Mariota in the first team offense played for the first one series last week, I believe, and he only threw 8 times. 6 of those targets 4 receptions went to Adam Humphries, which is just ridiculous on 75% of his looks on that one drive. But yeah, he played 1 drive. They're saying that he's going to play 2 today, so the first quarter pretty much, and then it's going to be Ryan Tannehill for probably the whole second quarter, maybe into the third. So you're looking at Logan Woodside, who has the most likely upside to play the entire second half. If not, he's going to play half of the third quarter. Tannehill will get 1 possession in the third, and then he's going to play the whole fourth. Woodside looked good. There's some actually decent depth at wide receiver on this Titans team, especially now with A.J. Brown coming back, their second-round pick. It's going to push down some of that depth. That A.J. Brown coming back will actually help Ryan Tannehill's stock, so that's why I kind of have a little bit more interest in Tannehill as well. They both look good in their first game between Woodside and Tannehill. Mariota looked terrible, apparently. Or not terrible. I mean, he did complete 4 of 8 passes, looked decent, I guess you can say. But Tannehill came in, looked great. So there was sort of a quarterback controversy talk, but it's all been quieted. There's nothing really to that. So yeah, I have interest in both of those guys in Tennessee. A little bit of interest. I have more interest in Woodside than Tannehill, though, just due to the fact that he'll be facing worse competition, and he's actually fighting for either a roster spot for the scout team, or if they're only going to go with 2 quarterbacks, trying to kind of overtake the Ryan Tannehill, which is probably unlikely. My third interest is going to be Jarrett Stidham. So look, Tom Brady's going to play today. Before last year, in his previous 4 preseasons, which was really previous 3 because he sat out 1 game because he cut his finger or something before the game. He averaged 8 pass attempts, which is about 1 quarter, right? 1 to 2 possessions. Last year, they just said, you know what, Tom, go out in the second preseason game, play the whole first half. He threw 26 times. So who knows what they're going to do today? I mean, if we get news somehow before the game starts, I don't know if there was any news last year when that happened. I don't think there was. If he plays the whole first half, well, then, yeah, he's right up there in terms of being with Pat Mahomes as the 2 best plays in the slate when you have elite quarterbacks at that level playing a whole half compared to non-elite quarterbacks playing a quarter and a half to 2 quarters, right? So keep an eye on that. I don't think that happens today. I imagine they just gave him his normal 8 possessions or 8 pass attempt average. He plays 1 quarter. They're going to have Brian Hoyer come in, who's actually a pretty good backup. He plays 1 quarter. And then Jarrett Stidham should play the whole second half. He's going to dress and continue to play with the 3s. He's been getting a lot more work with the offense, the number 1 offense. He's trying to push right in terms of just in practice. So he's trying to push right now Brian Hoyer for the backup job. And Brian Hoyer is a pretty serviceable guy, so I don't think this is actually going to happen. And I think the Patriots are only going to keep 2 quarterbacks. So if they do get rid of Stidham, this is kind of his time to audition. And I think he kind of knows that. There's really not room for growth on this roster. He looked pretty good last week. The Patriots also have a nice depth in terms of what they have at their wide receivers and even tight ends to an extent, although today, and we're going to talk about it, they have a lot of injuries. So those injuries are going to pile down, and it's going to make Stidham a guy who I think has a lot of opportunity today playing the entire second half, kind of auditioning for new teams, if not being a scout for the Patriots. It's going to make him a tougher play because there's so many injuries. It's going to help those wide receivers because they're going to get more run. But just in terms of overall talent on the field for Stidham, I'm not too sure. I like it a lot. We already talked about Patrick Mahomes, and then Devlin Hodges. He's likely to play about a quarter and a half or so. Big Ben, depending on if he plays or not, it's going to increase my interest in Hodges. If Big Ben does play, well, then you might be looking at Hodges potentially only playing a quarter today. But if Big Ben doesn't play, you're probably going to get a quarter and a half. Why do I say that? Well, Ben Roethlisberger, if he plays a quarter today, he'll get a quarter. Josh Dobbs will get a quarter. Mason Rudolph probably gets a quarter. And then it's going to leave the rest for Devlin Hodges. They have 4 quarterbacks on this roster. If Big Ben is not playing, they all get about a quarter and a half of play. But if Big Ben is indeed playing, it's going to bump everybody down just a little bit or so. Mason Rudolph, the guy who threw 2 touchdowns last week, I don't really have interest. He had limited pass attempts outside of his 2 touchdowns on those drives. Nothing was really there in terms of deep ball. He didn't really take many shots down the field. So he was very touchdown dependent, which we know that's variant, especially if you're only going to be playing on 2 to 3 possessions. So that's it for quarterback. The rundown is the main things. Again, I'll have the ranks out later. You can go to Patreon down below to see my tiers and official rankings by the end of the day, depending on news today. And once I actually sort through all of these thoughts on here, But yeah, Mahomes is on a tier of his own if he's playing the first half. Tom Brady, if we get news that he's going to play the first half like he did in the preseason game 2 last year, well, obviously then he's on a tier of his own, or with Mahomes' tier as number one. If indeed, or if for some reason that these beat writers were just writing things for clicks and they got me, they punked me, and Mahomes is playing one quarter, I don't have interest, and I'd probably have the most interest then in a Logan Woodside, a Jared Stidman, because they should be playing probably the entire second half for their teams. And they had decent performances last week. So that's quarterback. Let's get on to running back. Again, the running back, wide receiver kind of portions of these are going to be a lot of names, especially wide receiver today. I think I got like 15 guys start. I'm not going to go through all of them on a YouTube video. We'll be here for an hour. Nobody will watch it. I'll go broke. I'll die. I can't be doing that. I have to feed myself. I don't have immediate family. Well, I have immediate family. Yikes. Don't have kids, but I got to feed myself and my kids. I don't know what that means. A dog, right? So, what I want to do here is just briefly highlight some running backs. I'll get the rest into the tiers with analysis. You can hop in there. Same with the wide receivers. So a couple of running backs that are interesting to me today. Darrell Henderson Jr. for the Rams, definitely interesting. He led all running backs last week with the Rams with 7 touches, 6 on the ground, 1 in the air. And then after the game and in practice this week, McVay says that he wants to see more out of Henderson, which reading between the lines after a couple of sentences after that, discussing how he needs to see more out of him, more usage in these games. And that pretty much translates to you're going to get more run out of Henderson. Guy had 7 touches last week. So if more run means probably 10 plus. I like that a lot. They drafted him in the 3rd round to sort of be this insurance policy behind Gurley with his knee problems. Gurley, though, looking fine as of right now. But yeah, I believe Henderson's going to get extended run today. I do like that. Benny Snell Jr. was very inefficient last week with his touches, at least in the running game, but he had 16 overall opportunities. He had 13 carries on the ground, 2 catches, and overall 3 targets. So 16 opportunities with 3 targets to 13 on the ground in terms of running attempts. Nobody was even close to that. They're going to give him the work. James Conner, if he does play, which he shouldn't play, will get, 1 possession. Jalen Samuels will get 1 to 2. And then Benny Snell is going to come in as this RB3 playing up against 2nd and 3rd string guys. And look, he had 13 carries and he was very inefficient. He averaged like 2.5 or 2 yards per carry. That's not great, but the opportunities are the thing that I care about. If any of those are by the goal line, that's a touchdown. That makes a lot more sense for us. And then he did good in the passing game. He caught 2 of his 3 targets for like 25 yards. And if you're going to get passing game work, you know how much more I like you. So yeah, Benny Snell Jr., Darrell Henderson Jr., 2 guys that I really like right now. A 3rd guy that I have a ton of interest in is Darwin Thompson. Thompson's for the Chiefs. I mean, the guy's an absolute monster. He's probably, or at least he should, in my opinion, even ahead of Damian Williams by the end of this year, be the starting running back. He looks absolutely ridiculous. He was taking all of the RB2 snaps this past week in practice ahead of Carlos Hyde. He was getting all of the goal line work, splitting it really with Damian Williams, but being the main guy to see most of that work. So I like Darwin Thompson, another young guy. There's going to be more interest because he's going to be coming in. If indeed these Chiefs are going to play the whole first half, instead of Darwin Thompson coming in after Carlos Hyde at the end of the first quarter, he's going to be coming in at either the end of the second or the beginning of the third against much worse defenders, and he's by far way above those types of players on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string. So these young guys, once again, I have a lot of interest in Henderson, Benny Snell Jr., and Darwin Thompson. I will touch on Tony Pollard. Right now, Zeke is still obviously in a holdout. Tony Pollard's been just crushing it in practice, catching the ball, pass protection. I mean, all these tapes coming out, just a quick snippets. Every single time there's a highlight from the practice for the Cowboys, it's all because of Benny Snell Jr. So I do have a lot of interest, or not Benny Snell Jr., Tony Pollard, sorry. I do have a lot of interest overall in Tony Pollard in terms of regular season and definitely next week, week 3. But right now, he's the number 1 running back for this team. Jerry Jones came out and said, if indeed something happens wrong with Zeke, we have full faith that Tony Pollard can fill in and take over that entire role. And from what's happening in practice and the way he looks, I think so too. I mean, definitely behind that line. It's not as great as it once was, but you definitely can. And I personally believe running backs don't matter. So yeah, Tony Pollard. I love him for week 3. I like him potentially for the regular season, but do I really like him today relative to these other guys? He's their starting guy right now. He's probably going to start in this game, and if that's the case, you get 1 quarter at most out of him against the best guys. Now, can he hit a wheel route for 30-yard touchdown? Yeah, he definitely can. He has that talent, but so can every other starting running back on the slate then if they're going to play a quarter. I want the guys who are going to be facing worse competition and getting more run and just more opportunities. Pollard had 4 carries last week, didn't get involved in the receiving game. I expect that to change, but what you're looking at from Pollard is 5 to 7 opportunities today. What you're looking at from Henderson is probably 10 plus. What you're looking at from Benny Snell Jr., we saw last week, was 16 opportunities. That's probably 10 plus. And then Darwin Thompson last week, who I believe had 4 carries on the ground, and then he caught 2 of 3 targets. So he had 7 overall opportunities, and that's likely due to increase this week. So what you're looking at from these other guys that I mentioned before him their floors are sort of what you're probably getting out of Tony Pollard today's average. So I don't like that. Again, I think Tony Pollard is a fantastic running back, at least early on from everything. All these signs point towards that, but he's the starting running back compared to Benny Snell Jr. coming in as the second or third guy today. Darwin Thompson coming in as the second or third guy today. Darrell Henderson coming in as probably the second guy today. So yeah, those are early interests in terms of where I'm looking. And then you can see I have like 5 or 6 other guys listed here. Don't want to go through all of them. There's a lot of just things to pick through in New England. It depends on who's starting there or who's going to be playing. I don't think they should play or will play Michelle or Burkhead, who've been dealing with injuries, slowly working their way back into camp. We'll see if James White plays. We'll see if Damian Harris plays for the New England. He was a third-round pick out of Bama, so, I mean, running backs out of Bama, and especially in the third round, you know that there's some skills there. They held him out last week. He was a healthy scratch pretty much, but now they're saying he's dealing with sort of this hand or wrist injury in practice, but he's still practicing. They don't want to kind of push it in week 1 of the preseason. But if he's playing and he's the guy who's going to be going out there, then I kind of expect to get, if there's no James White, none of those other guys ahead of him, if he's this 4th running back on the depth chart right now, probably going to make the team. I expect him to see what they have in him in regular action, and he probably gets 8 to 10 touches. If he's out as well, then you get exactly what you got last week. Brandon Bolden, a special teams kind of captain guy, came in. He had overall, I think, like 8 to 10 touches. He had a couple of targets in the air, caught a couple of balls. Then you had Nick Brochetta, who was the guy who had 22 carries last week. And he had nothing in the passing game, not really a catch guy. But yeah, if all those guys above him are out once again, they're going to just turn right back to this Nick Brosetti, whatever his name is. I'm making him Italian because I am. Maybe that's the wrong thing to do, but who cares? So yeah, he's going to be getting sort of the nod once again. So again, you have to watch the news today for the Patriots, who is actually dressing. We'll probably find that out an hour to a half hour before lock. So that's why this video is helpful. But again, you have to keep doing your own work. So the guy who came into the comments last night and said, picks didn't help, unsubscribed. And I said, I got people telling me that they helped, and I know that they helped, and they're not all going to be right. So take your negativity out of here, banned for life, as Pat Mayo would say. But yeah, I guess we're going to go through all the running backs. We definitely won't do that for the receivers. I won't touch on the Houston situation. You can kind of read the notes. I'll talk about that later on. Higdon Jr. seems like a guy who stands out, but I think Crockett's the guy who has more upside overall and is probably the running back 3 on that team, or at least as of right now. And then in, again, Kansas City, if they're playing the whole first half, I do have interest in Damian Williams. I much prefer, though, Darwin Thompson, in my opinion. He should get run with the starters. He's going to be this goal line guy. He might even be the goal line guy with the starters if they get in there. So those are the running back interests. Lots of guys that I have interest in are Darrell Henderson, Benny Snell Jr., Darwin Thompson to a good extent, and then depending on what the New England situations looks like, potentially Brandon Bolden, Damian Harris, and Nick Brosetti become big plays for me. And here you go, 20 interests at wide receiver. Yeah, I'm not going through all of these. We'll be here for an hour. This video is probably already 10 to 15 minutes. Quickly touch on a couple that stand out. Chris Lacey for Detroit. Look, he only had 1 catch last week, but now there's some injuries. He was getting hyped up all week by Darius Slay in practice, they were saying, and over the weekend in practice. So Darius Slay was saying that he's the reason Slay is that good. He's been going up against him in all of last year in terms of being on the scout team. He said Lacey is very similar to a Megatron / Kenny Golladay, which is pretty crazy to kind of compare him to them. He said he's a really good grinder. Now there's injuries on this Detroit team. He should have more snaps overall. Again, only 1 catch for 10 yards last week. He's definitely not your automatic lock in there, but he's the guy who's a sleeper, right? We know the guys who are potentially going to be extremely highly owned today, and for good reasons. They have talent, and they saw opportunities, and they made use of them last week. But Lacey could be that guy this week. A.J. Brown returns today for Tennessee. Not sure how much they actually extend him. I have interest, a second-round pick out there. Potentially going to be already behind Chris Davis, their second-best wide receiver, if not surpass Chris Davis, who's been very mediocre so far outside of a couple, 2 or 3 decent games in his NFL career. But I don't think I have a ton of interest. Just going to point that out because he's coming back off of an injury, hasn't had any real game speed. He probably plays 1 to 2 drives at most, but it's going to be fun to watch in real life in terms of that. Tennessee, Khalif Raymond, he had 6 catches on 8 targets for 80 yards last week, battling for the wide receiver 6 spot. Lots of guys battling for that wide receiver 6 spot in Tennessee. Another one is Cody Hollister, who had 4 catches on 51 yards, 4 catches for 51 yards, a touchdown on 5 targets. And Woodside was the guy primarily throwing to him, threw the touchdown to him. It seems like that in that game and also practice leading up in practice this week, that Cody Hollister has the most, the best connection with third-string quarterback Woodside. So if you're going to be playing Woodside today, say Mahomes is not playing the whole first half, or you just don't want to go there for some reason, then kind of stacking him with Khalif Raymond, who he had some success with, and a Cody Hollister makes sense. New England, there's lots of guys. Look, there's so many guys injured for New England today. They've got potentially 5 guys, 6 guys actually, with Cam Meredith going on the PUP list, the PUP. 6 guys potentially sitting out at wide receiver today. So I have a lot of interest in all these guys. Jacob Myers becomes the obvious chalk bunny himself. He's had 6 catches, 69 yards, 2 touchdowns on 8 targets last week. He's going to continue to excel because he's been practicing with the ones in joint practice. Brady has been saying he wants him on the field more. Seems like a guy who's already locked up his spot just based off of his play last week, and he'll likely play 2 more quarters. Now, he's going to be extremely highly owned, but I'm not sure you get away from it. Braxton Berrios is a guy who's a nice pivot off of him. Berrios also had a good week last week, caught all 3 of his targets for 45 yards. Berrios is the guy who's kind of fighting for this bubble spot, and with all these injuries has the most to make out of it. Tom Brady was coaching him hard in practice, stayed after practice actually with a couple of the receivers. Berrios was one of them. And he pretty much, on one play, was yelling at him for kind of not running the right route. The next play, or 2 plays, next play, Berrios drew a penalty, which is good for wide receivers to draw that kind of contact, kind of a veteran type of moves. But then he actually caught a touchdown after that, so some kind of praise and bounce back there. But Berrios had a good week 1, continues to work with some of the ones in practice. Gunnar Olszewski, I can't pronounce these names, but he's a defensive back turned wide receiver, and now he has all the opportunity in the world with all these injuries to try and make a name for himself. Probably an outside chance, a real outside chance, but it's something interesting to watch today as he's excelling in practice after making this transition early on. And again, there's going to be 6 injuries to these wide receivers so far. Kansas City, right in all the starting guys, Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, if they're playing the whole first half. Again, this is the contingency that those 2 reports that I was reading are actually correct so far on Twitter. They have not gotten back to me, those beat writers, but I'm also up at 5 in the morning when I'm texting them, so that's probably why, or just reaching out to them. But Mecole Hardman, he had the rookie standout. He had 3 targets, caught 2 of them, 31 yards and a touchdown. Everybody saw the highlights last week, and he's probably going to get more run today, regardless of if the Stars play the whole first half or not. Reed said he wants to see him more on the field with the first unit, and then I imagine maybe he gets some more run after that. So he was an interest of mine last week. We played him, had some success. I'd like him again. But probably one of the best wide receivers on the slate is James Washington. Look, I'm not going to try and run away from him. Jacob Myers is going to be chalky. Maybe he's not worth it. James Washington is going to be chalky. He's probably worth it. James Washington was not a guy who on one drive caught 4 balls for a touchdown or something like that, right? James Washington played the entire first half. He came out with 2 minutes left after he scored his touchdown. So he played the entire first half. He had 5 targets overall, and he caught 4 or 5 of them for 80-something yards and a touchdown. So he had 2 big catches, like a 40-yard reception and a 20-yard reception, but still, he was the guy who was there the entire first half on the field. I imagine that happens once again, especially even if Dante Moncrief comes back. It's still going to help him stay in the game for longer, as he should, and then it's going to give him just better play against some secondary guys and third-string guys. So James Washington, at first I was like, okay, I don't want to eat this chalk. He probably got all of his work done on 2 drives. He played 3 possessions, but he played all the way into the second quarter. They weren't going to, if they wanted him to only play the first half, or the first quarter, they would have taken him out for that 3rd possession when he went in midway through the second half, or the second quarter. So yeah, James Washington, lots of interest in. Javea Johnson for Dallas, I have a ton of interest in. He only caught 3 balls for 30 yards, but he had 8 targets. He's getting a ton of hype right now. In the preseason, he's a huge target to kind of go aside of Amari Cooper, and they're saying right now, look, you have Randall Cobb, you have Michael Gallup, so some of this depth chart is in place, but he's sort of this bubble guy who's probably going to make the team. 8 targets is a lot to ignore. He was getting open. It's just this Dallas quarterback play is terrible behind Dak. There's really not much there, and that's why he's got leverage right now. He's like, oh, you want to throw Cooper Rush out there for 40 yards a game in the regular season? Yeah, good luck with that. I'm not playing this year. I would do the exact same thing. He's worth $40 million in my book, if that's the case. Couple other guys. Mike Thomas is interesting for the Rams. Look, the Rams quarterback or wide receiver unit, it's in stone. It's set. The first 4 guys are locked into their spots, right? You have Cooper, you have Robert Woods, you have Brandon Cooks, and then you have Josh Reynolds. They're all locked in. A couple other guys are. Mike Thomas is sort of a guy on the bubble, and he had 2 catches or last week he had a couple targets, caught a ball, and I was looking at Alex Bachman at first, but he really separated himself, and he's going to play some more snaps in practice this week, according to Sean McVay. We'll see if that translates. He had 17 snaps last week overall on offense, so it's probably about 2 drives or so. If he gets 3 or 4 today against some third-string guys, I do think Michael Thomas is an outside sleeper. The obvious guys today are the Chiefs wide receivers if they're playing the first half. James Washington. In my eyes, Javea Johnson is obvious, but he's not going to be owned as if he's obvious. And then Jacoby Myers is probably a little bit over-owned. He's a guy who's a potential fade, but he should be playing 2 quarters, a lot of that against some second and third stringers. So that's where I'm going right now with wide receiver. Didn't mention them all, but we'll have the tiers breakdowns later today. And then tight end. So it's Travis Kelce. It's you lock in Travis Kelce. If he only plays a quarter, I think I lock in Travis Kelce. If he plays the first half, you don't play another tight end and don't even look at them. I played Travis Kelce last week. He caught 1 ball for 36 yards. His 4.6 fantasy points was enough for me to turn all the $10 entries into 25. So really good, right? Unless there's a guy on this slate who's a tight end, and there are some who are just going to get into the end zone and have 4 or 5 catches. Then that's the only way that you get away from Travis Kelce. But if Kelce's playing the whole first half and is on the field for 4 drives at a minimum, yeah, you better be damn sure that I'm playing all Travis Kelce today. Even if he's just playing the first quarter, I like Travis Kelce over everybody else on this slate. I'm almost positive. A couple other guys just to point out. Blake Bell, also in Kansas City, looked good last week. He had 3 targets, caught 2 of them for 37 yards. Zach Gentry, he had overall 3 catches on his 3 targets, 17 yards and a touchdown. This is a guy who is terrible at blocking. He's transitioned to a tight end, but he's a nice pass catching guy. I believe he transitioned from wide receiver. He's a nice pass catcher, right? He goes out and he just can't block, so that's going to be worrisome for him to stay on the field. But when he's on the field, he's going to actually be a target to look at. But Blake Jarwin also had 4 catches for 51 yards on 5 targets last week with once Witten came out. That's a lot of elite usage, and he's a guy who last year was fantastic. Like, he was going off towards the end of the season and towards the end of the regular season in a lot of opportunities for Dallas. They kept him on the field for a couple of drives, which is good to see. If that increases today at all, you can be damn sure that this guy's going to beat his backup and third string linebackers. So Jarwin's a guy I have a lot of interest in. 5 targets last week, 4 catches, 51 yards. But right now, top of the list is Travis Kelce, even if he only plays 1 quarter. Ton of interest. Probably then Blake Jarwin draws my attention. And then Blake Bell and Zach Gentry are sort of an early guess at what I'll be looking at tiers. But yeah, have to get back into it. But that's it. Hopefully this video helps you out. Again, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at SalveTyourDFS. You can get the NFL Daily Fantasy course. Check it out down below. You can get the rankings that I'll be doing later today down below. Reach out to me on Twitter with any questions. And yes, hit the subscribe button. We're growing, team. We're growing. I appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what you think of these videos. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.